Hey everybody, it's Wednesday. How y'all doing? I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy to be alive. It's the small things for me. I woke up breathing. How y'all doing? How y'all doing this Wednesday? I hope y'all join me. I think we have room for a really good conversation that's needed. Any of you raising or have raised adult children or in the process of doing that or know somebody who is, let me tell you, I have stories to tell. And I've got some pretty fabulous kids, and this is in no way meant to be negative in any kind of way. But mostly it's just to provide you information. A lot of this stuff comes from my perspective and how I've made some mistakes, some things that I've learned. And I would offer it to you, if you like it, because I think it would be helpful. And just things that, how hindsight, they say hindsight is 2020. It wish you know, I wish if you change 2020 because you can't see it, but you get my point. But all I'm saying is I know that it can be challenging and it doesn't necessarily look like the Huxtables. It doesn't look like that at all. And family matters or really any of that stuff, especially now. You know, I haven't watched any of the shows now that have are centered around families because a lot of them are not. I think was it Blackish? I haven't seen that one a lot. I haven't seen it a lot. I've seen bits and pieces of it, but nonetheless, we're going to talk about a little bit about what it's like to parent and some of the unique challenges and things that caught me off guard. I'm going to share them with you all and see how you feel about that. And I also would like to invite you to tell me how you feel about it because we all in this together. Have you ever considered like when we're raising our kids? I'm gonna be honest with you. When I was raising my kids, I didn't see it like this, but I'm definitely more present about that now in terms of the way I think about it. So what I'm saying is, what I think about the kids that I wanted to raise and how the people that I wanted them to be, but I also consider, how they're going to show up in the world and that what their experience is going to be like. And then what other experience based on how we parented them, are they going to show up and experience and be an experience in somebody else's life? So that is to say that it's not necessarily about this, me raising my kids to think that it's all about them and understanding that when you show up in this world, you have a responsibility not only to yourself, but to your fellow, human brother or sister. And I think that I'm just gonna be honest with you. I think that the disrespect is high. I think the culture of disrespect is all of a sudden extremely marketable. I think it's getting to be a very thin line between what is acceptable and what is not. And I think that what happens is oftentimes we are left out of really giving our young impressionable minds context about things that we understand and have learned. And so sometimes just because of the culture that we live in, and what I mean by that is the access to media and TV, of really internet, social media, and that thing, just being able to be bombarded with it, they can internalize things they may not necessarily communicate to us. And also we may not see it until it actually shows up in some form. So what I'm saying when I say that is, if we know that we're parenting in a way where we are trying to self-correct, check behaviors, redirect them into understanding respectfulness and being polite, and how to speak to people, socialize, and so on and so forth, just to kind of show up in the world, be present, but at the same time, consider that somebody else is doing the same thing. Oftentimes, if the way things are working right now, it's very profitable, it's very popular to send these messages that these behaviors are okay. And some of them are funny, some of them within context. But what I'm saying is, when you're young, in your young child, and you're going into your adulthood, then if we don't put that into context, and if they've internalized behaviors and things that we have not seen, it is possible that they might in fact do them. So just want to talk about that real quick, simply because it's a real thing. It's a real thing. And, we have to understand that conflict is inevitable. Our kids, our little love munchkins, or whatever little names you give them, they will take you there. They will take you there if you let them. If we let them, they will absolutely take us there. And as much as we love our little saints and our little darlings, it will happen. It will happen. And I believe that's just along the road of, they're trying to self-identify, figure out their own identity, especially once they get to like the teenage years, and, just peer pressure and, different things like that. And whereas we've lived the age that they lived, right, but they haven't lived the age that we are. So we tend to, be considerate of that as well. But another thing we might want to consider is people act out in certain ways, like whether or not their needs are being met. So sometimes the behaviors that take place as a demonstration of showing out is really because there's an unmet need. And I say that from experience, just from kind of experiencing it myself, and also being a person who has at some point had to figure out more creative ways to explicitly say to somebody, this is something that is, I don't like, or this is bothering me, or I feel some kind of way, I'm frustrated because, or I'm annoyed because. And sometimes we don't necessarily say that, we just kind of act out. And so if we do that, we're growing through that, maturing through that, kids will too. So there could be some brokenness, some loneliness, abused, neglect. Somebody's neglected, especially with kids, because oftentimes something will take place and they're not sure how to tell the adults, even when we ask them. So I have experience where, I asked a blanket question and been like, hey, you can let me know. And I didn't know until way later. It happens. So we have to be, aware to some degree that some of that stuff that they're doing in those years, and even that, depending on how the relationship goes and if there's an open environment, they may or may not, act out, in those ways. But you can get through it and build a much better relationship. There's this quote, this lady, Priya Parker, but I'm gonna put it on the screen. And it says, healthy conflict is love tapping on fear. The fear of the shoulder fear, and saying, it's okay, I got this. So a lot of people are very discouraged by conflict. A lot of people avoid conflict, but I think if we give conflict a different, connotation, I think we can do it healthily. It's not going nowhere, so we're gonna have to do it. We're gonna just have to get into it, y'all. But we can be very careful about how we get into it. So here's just some of the facts of life. Children can be immature. They can be immature. People who are trying to meet the demands and expectations of adults. These are the people in their own lives, and sometimes their own needs for love, respect, and protection, they go unfulfilled. And unless we are, actively engaging in conversations and being aware of what they are saying, and oftentimes in those age groups, what they're not saying, oftentimes we can get an idea of, what's going on. So that's something to consider. Here's one. Parents, we can be immature too. We just can. But I don't think, it's anything that we go out of our way to do. I don't think that we, wake up and be like, you know what? I don't want to do this whole adult mature thing today. So I'm gonna be just immature. It don't work like that, you know. If you do that, please don't do that. But I really don't think it's something that is actually, done out of just because. I don't think that's the case. Okay. Um, as a parent, we're trying to protect and meet the needs for our children, right? Sometimes the best way to go about that, we don't necessarily, sometimes we just don't know. I mean, and parenting didn't necessarily come with the handbook. Some people would say, some religious literature would to some degree, and it does. But it's like a set of guidelines, but sometimes how to make it applicable is where the challenge is. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know the right and wrong of it, but when it comes to at that moment or this unique challenging situation, and I don't really know what to do and my emotions are involved, we don't necessarily, have here, did this? No, did this? Like, oh, it would be great if we had a Venn diagram, but we don't. So just something to think about. And we're also trying to manage our own personal relationships and family relationships, work relationships, business relationships. So in addition to, trying to, render and parenting, we have all those different relationships that we also have to consider. And just overall stress. I can tell you, I don't know if you all have paid attention to it, but, just during this pandemic and with people being isolated and with, just really hard conditions, very stressful conditions, very dire conditions that, families are experiencing. Young people, in school can't have proms, can't have graduation, can't have all these senior activities and things like that. Could you imagine going through? I'm thinking about back when I was in school. I'm gonna be honest with you, I hated high school. Didn't like it, could care less, wouldn't go back to it, didn't enjoy it. I don't have any years of like, I don't like it. And it had nothing to do with the people. I just want to be grown. But for those who do enjoy it, what about, all those things that they miss out on and they, and it's hard right now and just kind of not necessarily having that memory, so to speak. And then on top of that, if if your family is going through a situation where they, they lost jobs and the parents don't have, and maybe they have needs like senior pictures or different things and the parents can't afford it. So that just adds a whole nother level, of stress that I'm not sure, that is probably different than it has been before, if that makes any sense. So you just kind of add that on top of parenting to make it very difficult. And so sometimes in between those things, we, some of us do a pretty good job of balancing. Some of us, need a little work. And I think that's just a matter of being kind of aware and having support. Like having support, being able to have because it takes a village. For me, and I know others, because I hear you guys and I see you guys posting, we need help. You know what I mean? Like, I really pray that you have support. If it's not just from family or anybody else, just have some support. Again, it takes a village. But guess what? That talking back and the sassiness and all that stuff. Let me ask y'all a question. Y'all be honest with me. It's a lot of stuff out there about, kids, kind of, here's the thing. There's a lot of videos and different things like that where people share. And some of that stuff is hella funny. Don't get me wrong. As an adult, it's funny. And then you look at it and you like, you know what? That's cute until it's not cute. And so I just remember, it was a time where when children did things, because, children will say the darndest things. When children say things or do things that we didn't necessarily, celebrate it. I am of the time frame when if we actually did something like that, then they would correct us. And if they needed to laugh, they never did it in our face. They usually stepped away from that, had a conversation with the adults or called somebody and told them, but it was never anything where we encouraged it that it was encouraged in a way for us when we was younger. And I think what happens is it can be a bit confusing for kids. And what I mean by that is if we allow them to do those things and it's funny on a, for whatever reason, it's affirming, to laugh and giggle at it is affirming to them. And so what can be confusing is when it's affirming as they, at sometimes, and then sometimes it's not, and they get in trouble for it. And that's very confusing. Or better yet, if they are able to do it in a setting with their, family or people they're comfortable with, and then they have to go into settings where that is not, acceptable, and then they are reprimanded in, like say for instance, school or different things like that, that could be confusing too. So that's something that we definitely want to make sure that, what I mean, we are cognizant and very careful about, those levels of disrespect and those sly things that take place that we are not addressing, because it's all fun and games until it's not fun and games. And I think it's really we want to protect our kids. We don't want anybody for that, we don't want people outside of the home that doesn't know them completely in their totality to take something that may be, an innocent, kind of ha funny at home, and completely be something that is taken out of context outside the home. So we have to make sure that we're being consistent with that, in that, we can have a conversation with them about it, but let them know that, that's not, because otherwise what's going to happen is, they're doing it at home. They will do it once they leave the house, so, just something to consider. Listen, let's talk about meeting fire with fire. All right. So let me share this. If in fact you're having a situation where, let me say this, once your kids get to a certain age, the way we parent and address them and deal with correcting behaviors and things that they're doing that's not, we want them to not do those things. What I have found for myself is, I have all three of my kids are very, very different. All of them, the twins are very laid back. One is just super laid back. You ain't really got to say much. The other one is, more engaging in the sense that, there is a little bit more conversation to have and to take place in reinforcement. And then the other one is kind of going back between both households. So there's a challenge with, really reinforcing, different things, because each home is different, although we both want the best for her, of course, but each home is a little bit different. So, looking at just my past and how I tried to address certain things, I'm sure you can relate if you have, several kids, and how the way you talk to and parent with one and the way you have to maybe discipline may not be the same for the other one. And sometimes that can be perceived as favoritism. And, really having, I think once they get older, they kind of understand. I know I did, because I ain't gonna lie, I felt like I was redhead stepchild of mine. I'm a middle child, so duh, of course I would feel that way. But I also recognize that I was I'm just different in the sense that those times when people were being probably a little bit more with me, it was warranted. Like, I get that now. But of course, when I was going through it, I felt like I was being picked on. So that's just something to consider. But the other thing is just making sure that, when we're talking about personal conflict, like the blame, the attacking the other person's character personally, and bullying, let me tell you, I have seen people in families do this to one another, and specifically to kids, their own kids, and then wonder why they go to school and do this to other people. I'm just saying, we're going to have a real conversation about this stuff. Okay. So that's one thing. Some of the things we can do alternatively is to affirm, like I mentioned earlier, use I statements. This for somebody who's extremely emotional, can start with you, because it feels very much like an attack. Most people would. But what I have found is people who are a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more sensitive in nature, tend to cannot tolerate you at all. It feels accusatory and it feels attacking. And so, when we handle conflict within other people, and also as we address, our children, we want to have to do the same thing, because they're little people too. They deserve the same type of respect as we would as our bosses, as we would if we have a business and we have clients. They deserve the same level of respect. Again, find the wish or the request underneath the criticism, making sure that, we are focusing on the issue. Understanding that sometimes it's hard because when we're in our feelings, it's really, really hard. But anyway, yeah, that's just one of the things to think about. Let me know what y'all think. This is important. I find this stuff to be very helpful. It's not always easy to come out here and give this information, but let me just tell you this. Let me just tell you this. One of the reasons why this is so super important to me is because I did time. And I seen some of this for 3 years. And I seen it come and go when I was in the county jail. And if you're not familiar with that, God, I hope you're not. It is a revolving door. And so to be there waiting for a case and to see people coming in a revolving door, you could tell who was going to be back just based off of the way that they conducted themselves, how they were, how disrespectful they were. And I'm not saying that we already know there's systemic things. We get that. But I'm just saying just where you could tell there was a breakdown in the home. It was a breakdown in the parental relationship. There was violations that took place. There was disrespect that happened towards them. Some of them weren't even hugged. Some of them were not told, I'm proud of you. Some of them were just not, made to feel like they matter. You know what I'm saying? And so when you are made to feel like you don't matter, then when we go into the world, that person, us, me, let me be inclusive, we will conduct ourselves in a way where we feel we would treat other people the same way too. So that's the reason why I do these things, because I see it. I've also been fortunate enough to be around children in, areas where they're really struggling economically, and not having access to just being able to have this level of conversation and parenting, because the parents are working so hard. It is hard. And so I share this because I can't assume that everybody was raised like I was, and I can't assume that we all have the information. And it's quite possible that the challenges and experience that I have could be helpful, because I know that I can call on other people who can help me as well. So, just know that I don't be out here banging my righteous horn, because it ain't even like that. It's just that the fact of the matter is that people, perish for lack of knowledge. And that's just, I think we can assume people have it and they really, really, really don't. So I'm just giving you what I would have wanted somebody to give me. And one other thing I'll tell you, not to get off topic, but a lot of the women that were there, they were looking for motherly figures, like the older elders who were loving and talked to them. They clung to them. They clung to them. They come in as young girls and they clung to them. It's amazing. So anyway, I'm just sharing this, I'm assuming it's to some degree. I don't know what the males, environment is like, but I also think that the older, more mature, more level-headed guy in those facilities gets respect, and they value what they have to say. Yeah, I hope that's the case. Also, when you have these conflicts, don't be defensive and deflect. Self-protection and justifying. Don't make that situation get better. Try expressing gratitude for their positive actions. Also using I statements to describe the feelings. Take responsibility for the impact of others. Let me tell y'all something. I share this when I go and speak, and I speak to women who have been incarcerated and they're, raising kids, and they're like, they may, been away, they've been separated. And at some point they get home, and it is so difficult to not force the adhesion of a bond back. And this could be not just from somebody that's been away, but something took place. Something took place that caused some childhood aversion type of thing between parent and child. And oftentimes we kind of just want to okay, Matt, let's get over that. Oops, my bad. Sorry about that. Can we just move forward and pick up where we left off? Not going to happen. It's very rare, because they're different people. You're a different person. The other thing is not forcing them to be ready to talk about it, because we are. They may not necessarily have the language to say what they need to say. They may feel like, I don't want to say nothing because I don't really want to hurt their feelings. They just got home. They've been through a lot. I experienced that. And the other thing was just that I think it took time for them to process what it was that they were feeling. And in some cases, those things can really bubble up. And I'm saying to you, when I say they can take you there, I'm not above that. And I pray that you have somebody that you can go to, a family friend, a trusted member. And I had to. I will tell you, was a few times, and I called my mom, was like, "Ooh, did you ever feel like this with me?" And she was like, "Oh yeah." Like, if you know what I mean? Like, she was able to say, "Oh yeah," and she talked me through understanding, the time we're in, and understanding, what it is, the kind of, little people that they are, and what they might be considering, and different stuff like that. And then for me, because I felt like, oh God, I gotta be the worst, worst mom. And it wasn't that, it was more or less fear, right? So it was fear about, okay, is she okay? Is it gonna happen? Is something gonna happen again? I don't know if she's all right. I don't want to hurt her feelings. I feel this way, you know what I mean? So a lot of that was rooted in fear. So I'm sharing that with you because I experienced it. That's just the honest God truth, people. And so communication and respect is the key. That's the key, y'all. Communication. Communication is not as easy as we make it seem, right? People always be like, you got to communicate. You got to communicate. The more we got social media, and Lord, now we got social distancing, communication is going to need a real tune up. Going to need a tune up. Just being present, our presence. We can't communicate and command and give respect if we're not present. Yeah. Let me say that again. We can't communicate and command and give respect if we're not present. So if you haven't been present, or you kind of been distanced, and then all of a sudden you show up and you're like, hey, blah, 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 dude, that don't go over well, especially as they start matriculating into that older teenage, young adulthood. No. Like, where you been? You ain't. I done seen some stuff go left quick because of that, because they just feel like you ain't been here, you ain't been present, or whatever the case may be. Now you want to show up and be a parent. And think about it. If they've demonstrated if we've demonstrated in some type of way, some level of disrespect in the way we handle conflict, conversations, communication, and they've been around us to actually see us do it. And then at some point they start doing it to others. And at some point, they do it to us. And you already know what we're going to do culturally. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just saying to be ahead of that. Right. I'm not saying to come at this at the end and be like, I will take it, because we know we feel that way. But if we could just think about, all right, let me treat you how I want to be treated. If I am going to talk to you about stuff, one of the things I did do with my kids is question, comments, and concerns whenever I gave something. I didn't yell because I didn't like being yelled at. So that wasn't anything that we did. Their father's very calm, doesn't yell. So that's an environment that they're not, it was good. But I want to say that yelling at them constantly is very difficult. And then at some point they anticipate or almost can't function unless somebody's yelling at them. So just be mindful. Just be mindful of that. You can't raise grown kids. You can try, but it won't go well. What will more than likely happen is you will alienate them, and instead of them coming to you, it will push them farther away. Just let you know, my daddy told me that, and he was right. You got to know your role. You the parent, them the child. Understand? Some people are like, oh, it's my BFF. Hey, that's cool. That's how you want to roll with it. For me, I am your mother, and at one point we will be friend-ish. But you only get one mom. You're going to have plenty of other friends. And I want to make sure that line is kind of clear right now, because I know in these years it's hard. You're going to need me. Be the example. You know what I'm saying? Be the example. And I'm going to give you a few things because we are really at our time. But I want you to, just a few things I want you to take away with, just to consider. We can teach all the right lessons with our words. But most important, we can give our kids, the most important thing we can give our kids is demonstrating how to treat and respect one another. Right? Like, that's important. We can say, well, you have to do this, you should, you know what I mean? And if we don't demonstrate it for them as an example to know how to show respect and be respected, we're leaving that up for the world to define it for them. And we are in a time where it's really different, and there's more means to things to define it for us or for them. So just to think about it. To add to that, if we're telling our kids something that we're not willing to do ourselves, we are losing a lot of credibility. And I know that can be difficult, but let me just say this: to do as I say and not as I do thing, on it, it's just that ain't gonna work. And it's not going to work. It's a way different time. It shouldn't have been done then, but it's whole completely different. It just something to think about. But we lose credibility, and when we lose credibility, guess what we lose? Their respect. So be our example. By our example, we are either giving our children a head start with blessings or giving them some baggage that they will need to overcome. So that, for me, I'm gonna end on that note, because I really think that a lot of the times when we're going through our day-to-day life, we're trying to just deal with whatever we're dealing with, and when we are, it's tough. It's tough because we have, as parents, I'm like, oh, I'm mom, but I'm also Marissa, and I was Marissa before I was your mom. And so whenever I have a shortcoming moment, I have had to say that to the kids, but I've also had to take responsibility. Like that's not cool. You know what I mean? Like, I apologize that you had to see me like that. But let me tell you, that's not cool. And really make sure that I don't continue to do that, because otherwise, me saying one thing and doing another thing is just definitely going to cause me to lose credibility. More importantly, as they go through life and they start handling their own situations, and they're of age where their responsibility for their behaviors and choices and actions are all on them. I really don't want them to go through things in life, and you know what I mean, it be as a result of me not doing what I should have did as a parent and conducting myself in a way that I should have. I don't ever want to be in a guilty position for that. And sometimes, kids just have their own journey. Let me just say this. We all have our own journey. So it could be, you could do everything and show them. And sometimes you just got that prodigal child that's going to have their own journey. And that's okay too. You know what I mean? You can't control it. My prayer for you is that you can always be there for them, because a lot of them do come around. They do. That's just their journey. And they have a lot to offer, wisdom and things like that because of that experience as well. So I think that's all I got. This stuff has been very interesting to me. Like I said, we are relational beings. We are interdependent. We need one another. And I'm really hoping that we can figure this out as best as we can, and find a whole nother way for dealing with conflict internally, and then maybe that interpersonal conflict with other people, because we can't go around like bumper cars. There's too many people dying because of it, and there's a lot of people locked up. So that's all I got. Y'all, thank you for joining me. Peace out.